Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Claire Jones. If we haven't already met, I'm an author and small publisher committed to changing the world for the better through inclusive stories and practices. And we are jumping on today for my Authorvision Facebook Live series, where I interview the amazing and inspiring authors in my network to discuss the personal visions that have shaped our lives and careers. So if you're joining us, please like, comment, share below. Let us know that you're here. And today we're talking with Sierra. Yay!
Hi, y'all.
I always do the little happy dance. I don't know if
Got
that's
to,
necessary or
absolutely.
not,
Shake your tail.
but yeah,
Whether you have one or not.
we need these little dance breaks. So let's dive in. Tell me your backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
I would say by accident, but I actually highlighted that in a text that I was writing, and I'm like, that's not accurate. It was not an accident. It may or may not have been haphazard. But it was not a guided, clear one step in front of the other.
I mean, it rarely is, right?
And I think it's really important to bring that up. And so, yes, a woman in our network calls herself an accidental entrepreneur. And that I really like, but I'm not an accidental author. This is not like oops, I tripped on the street. Like, this is something more than that. But the wedge that made it not intentional was really just like doubt. I was like, this tiny little thing that you might have heard of.
Yeah.
And so I knew that we were going to hop on today, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, what do I want to tell them? What do I want to tell Claire? What do I want to share? It's like, well, the first time I sat down to write a book was 2006. And I was like, wait a minute, that's a minute ago. It is 2003, 2006 I was like a baby.
Yeah, I keep forgetting it was so long ago.
I graduated with a master's degree, but I was still just like a baby, right? And then I realized that that's not the first time I sat down to write a book. And I always forget that I wrote, designed, and released a book in the 8th grade.
Sweet, yeah.
It was like, and I think because I was a baby, and because I was so cottage industry kind of like made it home, printed at Kinko's, but I worked with a professional designer. I went to her house.
Can we just do a shout out to Kinko's in general?
Right?
Like, that doesn't even exist anymore.
Does it not? Oh my gosh. The thing that kept, before self-publishing was self-publishing, there was Kinko's.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I feel like a Stone Age dawn of era. Dun, dun, dun. But so I've played in this space and created things, but even in my own storytelling, I didn't give myself credit for those. And so when I sat down to write a book, I didn't know how. I'm air quoting all over the place because part of that is a story that I told myself. Absolutely. And the other part was a legitimate, I didn't know how. But I also didn't know that everything else I've ever learned, I could learn this too. So 10 years after sitting down to write a book, I sat down to write a book. Right? And there's like a fleshy little decade there where I didn't show up for this, because I'd created a story about how I didn't know, I couldn't, I'm not that person, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? That is a BS story, but it is a universally applied. I have yet to met a person who comes and is like, I know I can do this, I'm just talking to you. I'm like, no. I run a successful publishing company now as a result. So irony, I didn't think I could for the longest time. I learned how, and now I help other people do it because it is so doable. Anything that you know how to do becomes really, really easy because you know how to do it.
I mean, once you learn how to learn too, it's not learning what to learn, it's learning how to learn at the end of the day.
And it's both, because I do know how to quickly go in and change the categories and keywords in KDP and in Ingram Spark and get a book out. I know how to do those things. But I also know that just because I don't know today doesn't mean I'm not going to have it figured out by tomorrow, which is, I think, to the point you're making. So that's how I got here. And it is haphazard, and it is sort of self-inflicted. And yet I say all the time, because I work with authors in this community space, and women come to us, and people of all kinds come to us, and they always have a question, and they're like, what if I can't? Which isn't really a question, but it is phrased like a question. It's more like this mountain of doubt that I was very familiar with. And we go through this process, and they write and they create, and then they put a book out, and there's sort of this like they have a new question, but it's, wow, I just did this impossible thing, this thing that I had crafted an entire life around not being able to do.
Yeah.
I've just done it. What else can I do? And it's like a switch is flipped, and they're just like on. And sometimes they're exhausted and burned out and don't even want to think about their book or look at it for 36 days, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But it's also like, hot damn mama, what else can I do? Yeah. So that's what I do. How's that for a reply?
I can relate to so much of that, and I know a lot of people can relate to that as well. There seems to be this like 10-year period when you're a writer where like you start to get the inkling 10 years in the past, and then
it's a 10-year incubation period.
Yeah, there seems to be like a 10-year incubation period, because
author virus.
Yeah, exactly, because I tried to write my first book in 2013.
Yeah.
I published my first one in 2022.
Yeah.
And
so you're like an overachiever.
I mean, yes, guilty as charged. I actually made a TikTok yesterday. I'm like, even I annoy myself sometimes.
Oh, no, well, we have to be honest with ourselves. Like that. Come on.
Yeah. And it's just so funny. And I don't think enough people value that time, like myself included as well. Like I have beat myself up for that time many times. Is like, it shouldn't have taken me that long. I should have known better. I should have seen this earlier.
I could take a whole nother decade beating myself up about it, or I could just start working on my next book or promote the one that I just wrote.
Yeah. Exactly. And
that's the residual of that fear story. Is
totally
so afraid that I didn't do anything about it, and now I should have known better.
Yeah. And we like to blame other people. We like to blame other things. We like to blame ourselves, but at the end of the day, that is a blame game, Yeah,
it's not wildly productive, actually. I know that's a shocker to everybody. But...
Right.
What? It's not the best use of my time? Dang it.
Yeah, I mean, because we are a little brainwashed to do that, especially as creatives and writers, because of this, starving artist narrative that we've been fed over the years.
Well, I want to make just draw a parallel to investing. Okay, because all right, so you didn't put $100 away every month starting when you were 18,
right?
Yeah, okay, but did you put $100 away this month or not?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to try to figure out how to like make up for all the lost time without actually doing the action that you wished you had done before, come on.
Yeah.
Like, and just the example, the reason I think of it is because I'm setting up an account right now for my 8-year-old daughter.
Wow.
Because you can do this, right?
Yeah.
And somebody was like, well, don't you feel like you've wasted so much time? I was like, you mean being 40 years ahead of the curve? Yeah, I could have done this when she was 8. I mean, and when she was born, and I would have had 8 more years at it. But now is perfectly fine. Like right now is a great time.
Yeah.
For writing, for investing, for publishing, for anything.
Yeah.
Like I was raised Buddhist, so there's this underlying, this is it. This is this moment, this day, this is all you got ever. Yep. So what are you going to do in this moment? Are you going to blame? knock your socks off if you want to, but
Yeah.
this is it. And is it too early to start talking about my book? Because I think there's a really good segue here.
This is your interview, dude. Do with what you
Never
want.
too early, right? So I think all of this fits together. This is my newest baby, Typo, The Art of Imperfect Creation. You can't read it here very well because of the glare, but it's permission to do it badly.
Yes. Yes.
And I think this is it. I know that if I had permission to do it badly, if I'd had permission to try,
right,
then I could have learned so much more than I didn't learn, right? Like could have learned so much more just by knowing, let's make a mess of it, go screw it up, go fail. And I wrote this, it's the first of a series of books I'm writing for my author community and aspiring authors because of that. When we can figure out, I mean, creatives, you said this word, and it's so interesting because I feel like so many creatives are crippled by, oh, I don't have enough followers yet, and oh, it's not, media ready, and it's not this, that, and it's and it's not gonna be that. And I was speaking with an author this morning, and she got a traditional publishing deal, and it's fantastic. And she's got 143,000 followers, and that's fantastic. And that's why she got her traditional publishing deal, because she had the over 80,000 mark that everybody needs. But she started once with nothing.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
And when you're willing to start with nothing, and sometimes it's hustling, but sometimes it's just trying and failing and screwing up. That's where we build momentum. That's where you find your voice. That's where you find your people. When I was in my 20s, I think I said maybe out loud to somebody else, like, I don't know why I have a boyfriend. And I'm like, I'm just waiting for somebody to like knock on my door and ask me out. And I know, like, I feel like this conversation is like, that might not be the best strategy, right? Like, but I think it really had embodied this. Like, I'm just going to sit here and wait inside my own house. I'm just going to wait. And somebody's going to tap me and tell me I'm amazing. And I see this parallel with people who want to share and want to tell, but it's this doubt and this perfection, and somebody will come and get me when they decide that I'm ready. And nope.
Yeah.
So I had so much fun writing this. It's a bunch of personal stories. There's a whole bunch of doodling spaces in the book, because that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Like your design, like go scribble here. Go make a mess on that page.
Yeah.
Because it is something that we really have to learn how to do, is to like make a mess. And we're not naturally trained. It's really trained out of us.
It is.
Little people are good at this, and then older people.
I've been thinking this
failing.
entire time. There's actually a study that I came across recently. There were separate groups of people, and the researchers gave them one task. They were given a bunch of spaghetti and marshmallows, and they were supposed to construct a building out of
Cooked spaghetti or raw. It was.
And like whoever won had like the tallest and the strongest structure.
So it was not cooked spaghetti.
No.
That's great. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like one of the groups was like architects, engineers, like the serious people. Another group was like CEOs, like just business people. And then one of the other groups is kindergartners.
Awesome.
And so like guess out of those groups,
kindergartners smashed it.
Exactly. And it
beat the architects. Silly.
They had multiple iterations of their buildings. Like it would collapse and they'd try again. They
didn't plan it for 45 minutes. They just started sticking things together.
Exactly. And I think that is a perfect example of why we need these sandboxes to play in ahead of time. Because I always think of the phrase like from the Joker and Batman, like, why so serious? Like not everything has to be so serious. You have to have that space, that buffer room, that wiggle room to play around in, so that when you do get to the serious stuff, you have experience under your belt. And I think that a lot of people don't think about that in terms of careers.
Yeah.
Because careers and making money is such a serious thing, and we need budgets, and we need, living expenses and bills, and like.
And I completely agree. All of those things are useful.
Yeah.
They definitely, it's a thing. But if it's the only thing, then it almost defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
If you have your living expenses, but you hate your life, then who's the fool, right?
Yeah.
And I'm only saying that, I'm not pointing the finger anywhere but right here, because I have really managed to focus on a lot of the wrong things for a long time.
Sure.
Which is why I think I'm completely the authority on this subject, because I am a frustrated creative and a perfectionist in recovery. But it's so fascinating. But it's not fascinating, it's heartbreaking to watch so many people stay trapped in this cycle of like, I want to, but I can't. We're such good storytellers.
Yeah.
We're such good storytellers about why we can't do the thing.
Yeah.
That we don't realize that that's where we're putting all of our creative energy into coming up with the stories about why we can't put that down on paper and then burn it. And then, I do love how young people are so good at this, and that we think that when we grow up, we're better and smarter. But we fail at failing. And if I could give everyone a gift, I would say, like, I wish you could fail a lot more frequently.
Yeah. Fail forward, right?
Right. Fail fast, fail forward, fail often, fail with vigor and pride. And, I'm raising my daughter, she's 8. And so I do have sort of a front row seat to,
sure, yeah.
She's already starting to adult a little bit, maybe. But if we're only celebrating our successes and not celebrating our attempts and celebrating our failures, then we're setting the wrong example. We're focusing on the wrong things, because it's not our successes that propel us. It's our failures. And we're missing the mark. So anyway, I wrote this one for anybody who is a frustrated creative, who just wants, they'll get to it when it's ready, when it's right. No, honeyberry, that's not how you get there. You get there by screwing it up. So please go screw it up by all means.
Yeah. So that's why I hate the phrase, there is no try, just do and do not. Because it's such a binary opposition. Like, why can't—
is that Yoda?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I do love Yoda, but
I mean, like, sure, I'm a Yoda stan as well, but that one phrase I think is overused as a way to make people feel like they have to do it on the first try.
Really? Because I actually hear it completely differently.
Really?
I do, because it's the doing that is just do it, do the best that you can, and then if that didn't work, just do it again. Because try, to me, I hear, I'm going to say that I'm doing it, but I'm not really committed yet because I don't believe in myself yet. I'm going to try. No, excuse me, screw that. Like, no.
We're allowed to curse on this podcast.
Okay, just do it. And by just doing it, whatever it happens to be, it doesn't matter. The result is not implied for me when I hear that expression. It is the showing up.
Yeah, because I see it as anything worth doing is worth half-assing. So even if you do just half-ass something, you still learn something from it. So you
Mhm.
don't have to whole ass everything. But
Yeah.
I definitely see what you're saying is like, I think the doing and the trying is synonymous for you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a quote in my book because I redefine failure as, can't remember, but it's like not trying,
Yeah,
not showing up,
sure.
not right. Like, oh, I don't know how to make that dinner, so I'm just gonna not,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then I'm not gonna eat, and then I'm also not gonna know if I can make it or how I should make it better next time. What is that? And when we make it in such simple terms, people are like, oh yeah, no, obviously. Except we day to day
Yes.
talk ourselves out of stuff that could take 10 minutes
Yeah.
and make all the difference.
Yeah.
I'm catching the glimpse at the corner of my eye. So this is written on the back of my book, and it says, your story can change the world, but only if you write it. And that's the thing. And we're all hiding in our houses, waiting for somebody to knock on the door.
And be like, tell us your story.
Right.
Please.
You look like you have something interesting to share. I'd love to give you a publishing deal. No, that is not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we've talked a little bit about lessons. We've
yes.
talked a little bit about visions already. So I think let's get a little practical. What everyday tools did you use to support yourself throughout this journey?
Yes. A sense of humor is
Fuck yeah.
a really valuable tool, because
That's the
when you're
first time
face
I've ever
down,
heard that answer, and I am like
really,
formally endorsing that
oh,
answer.
no, absolutely. It is a mandatory toolkit, because face down is a place that you're going to be a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're doing this well,
Yeah.
and forgive the judgment of doing it right and doing it wrong, but if you're going to do this well, you're going to fall on your face a ton.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a sign that you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You're doing well because you leapt a little further than you leapt last time. And when you're down there, you should be able to be like, okay, well, that just happened.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Right? Just like, and you can mope about it, and you can, be dramatic about it and all of the things, but then, okay, dust yourself off, roll up your sleeves and be like, oh, okay, well, that was a little further than what do I do next time?
Yeah.
So I definitely think a sense of humor is really helpful. I'm sure you've all heard this before, but if you're measuring your first steps to someone's final steps, that's a rough game to play. And you will never measure up, or you'll be measuring up against people that don't deserve your, and it feels cliche, but it all fits in together of like, if I'm taking steps every day, then I am making progress. And that's all that matters to me. I don't know about all of you all, but when I can say, I showed up for something I care about today, and I am this insignificantly bit closer than I was before, even if it meant I spent all day on my ass, and that's how I'm going to get closer to it. I did that.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow I'm going to do this and this and this and this. But we have these stories that we're going to get from here to here in an instant, and it's going to be easy, and it's going to be
overnight
fun.
2-day shipping. Yeah.
Right. And you've heard that expression, like an overnight success, but it took 10 years to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
It takes time. And this is where I think part of why I wrote this book, and part of how I show up in communities and for my authors, is by sharing all of my face down, my failures, all of it, because when we sort of remake the story of how progress is made, then we're not coming up against the story of the overnight success.
Yep.
Yes, we get the backstory of all that it takes to get to that place.
Yep.
Even if that's a place you aspire to be. I don't. And I was on a call yesterday with somebody who was like, you've built this entire business, you've done all of this in 2.5 years. And I was like, yep, I have. And he sort of looked at me and said, how? I was like, well, I just like showing up every day. Because we can do amazing things if we can take away the story that it has to be this big and amazing and perfect the first go around.
Yes.
But also, yeah, I also, the point that I wanted to make is like, when we say 2.5 years and we're looking back, it feels small, like time compresses. It's like, oh, 2.5 years is like, 2.5 years is like 900 days. No.
Yeah. I've learned a shit ton in the last 2.5 years.
Right. 900 days, give yourself 900 chances.
Yeah.
I hope that you've learned something, right? It doesn't, but if you talk to me about the next 900 days, that is this big. And the last 900 days is this big. And so we compress the time it took us to get here. We compress our previous accomplishments. We compress all of the things that we're capable of. And then we expect this much of ourselves in the future and feel like the future is daunting. And that's wonky and skewed and is not a great mindset, because what if you flip it and you say like, look at this mountain I just climbed. The next 900 days ain't nothing. I got it.
Yeah. And I think underlying all of what we've been talking about too is this ability to track our progress. And I think that stems from being able to recognize our progress in the first place, which I think is what you were speaking to at the beginning of this episode, is like looking back and seeing the patterns, looking back and seeing the experience, looking back and seeing the wins, the failures, everything in between, and recognizing it, valuing it, and adding it to the evidence of you being amazing.
And this is really hard. There's two things I want to say, because I want to go back to your previous point about being so serious. But I bought a notebook because I like to have to-do lists and check things off.
Yeah.
But I realized, it's taken me this long to realize it, but I realized that having a to-do list is a never-ending journey. And so I no longer use this notebook for that. Rather, as I accomplish something in a day, I write it down. And this is my I did it list.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. I call it my victory list, actually.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. Like, what victories did I get today? Because
to your point, exactly, I can work all week and feel like I didn't get enough done. But then if I look at this, I'm like, every day this week, I got a week's worth of stuff done, some of it being epic.
Yes.
And if I don't have that sense for myself, how can I possibly show up and try and risk and fail and do it again? Because I'm, again, coming from this really warped sense of the value of my efforts. But I wanted to bring up this point because you being so serious. And I think we at Red Thread always say, so I run a publishing company called Red Thread Books. And we say that author is the root of authority, because it is. I didn't make that up. It really is. And the way that you become an authority is when you start sharing the story. You become part of the narrator of this global experience.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, yes. Okay. I love it.
But, and it's so true, and I love it, and I'm completely on board with it. The flip side of it for me comes with this pressure to be serious.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we talk about the playful authority. How can you be fully in that space, claim the right to tell your story without getting all I don't know, Victorian, and like for me, author comes
Yeah.
with like leather arm patches and corduroy jackets and like
Yeah.
dingy studies in
Yeah.
this Victorian era. Don't know about it, but like that, there's a story in my head about who has the right to speak, and that's what it looks like. But playful is again this kid thing, because they can play and they can share and they can revise and they can make it anything that they want it to be. And so for me, there's a dichotomy there, playful authority. But I think it's a really important space to be in. It's partly what allows for me to celebrate the things that I accomplish in a day. And, you know, like put them like candles on a birthday cake and like, look at this and look at this and look at this.
Absolutely.
You know, my daughter comes home with this like little treasure that she knit at school, or like 3 leaves and a rock she found. And she's like, look. And I'm like, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
But I need to be able to be like, wow, Sierra, that's great. Look at what you did today.
Yeah.
With the same, you know.
Absolutely. I have so many thoughts. I mean, we could continue this conversation for days, honestly, at this point. Like, just using the example of your daughter bringing home things, like maybe our digital existence nowadays deters from us being able to see that physical evidence, you know?
It certainly does.
Like, we don't see how many emails we send in a day. There's no physical, like, representation of how many people you've spoken to, how many people you've reached out to, how many agents you've queried, like whatever the thing that you're doing is. That's fascinating.
Maybe like a jelly bean in a jar, or a pebble, or like you just fill the jar, and you know, it's really important to build in acknowledgement and celebration and reward. I know people who write books, publish books, and then don't think it's a deal. Right? Like it's the thing they've been striving for, working hard on every day for a year. And they're like, yeah, meh.
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
And so if we're the last tool that I will say is, you've got to know how you're going to celebrate ahead of time.
Yes.
You've got to plan it. You have got to, I know I had a coach for a while who said, like, buy the champagne now. Every year, what are the goals? She buys 12 bottles of champagne. She puts them on a shelf. She labels each one of them, and she pops one. And this is great. She pops it and like goes to a secondhand store. She goes thrifting with her friends with a bottle of champagne. And that's the thing.
I love it.
I want everyone to know, how will you honor your accomplishment? Whether it's your accomplishment today, this year, this decade, and it should match. It should make you so excited that you can look at it as a reminder. And we do, I think your point is really important. We need the physical reminder. Because when there's a jar full of pennies, my daughter has this jar full of pennies. She's rich. And I'm like, yeah, that $20 bill that you have that's in that jar is so much more valuable than all the pennies, but not to her.
Yeah.
Because she's right. There's a million friggin' pennies in a jar. What's this one piece of paper? That's nothing. 1 penny, 1 paper, same, right? And so if there's, however it is, maybe it's in a notebook, stickers on a wall, rocks on a pile, but if we can physicalize. When you're an author, you can make up words. So make it tangible, make it visual, so that we can sense accomplishment. I don't know if you can all see it, but like this shelf.
Yeah.
These are the books that we've published, and it's not even all of them, because I have, oh my God, like this beautiful stack of things right here. Right? This is my life.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I buy the paperback books because if I get them all on my Kindle, they all still fit in a little tiny box, and it doesn't feel like a thing. I'm not going to put my Kindle on that shelf and be like, look at all the books I published. That's not how it works.
Yeah, like have one of those like automatically scrolling photo frames.
Exactly. It would need to be, right? My digital bookstore.
Yeah.
And so that's the last, a sense of humor. There was another tool somewhere in the middle, and know ahead of time how you're going to celebrate. Because I think those of us who struggle with any of this also struggle to acknowledge how far we've come. And so like set that early.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I mean, we can end there. Anything you want to add before we wrap up? Because that was a beautiful wrap up anyway. So
That's perfect. Yeah, no, it was great. Really happy to be here, share. If you're struggling with getting your story out, I highly recommend that you read Typo, The Art of Imperfect Creation, Permission to Do It Badly. And if you're ever looking for a community of authors, Claire has one as well. But Red Thread Publishing really works. We're on a mission to support 10,000 women to become successful published authorpreneurs and thought leaders. So come on in.
Love to see it. All right. Well, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about per usual. And audience, please reach out and tell us your own thoughts and feelings and insights on this stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's something you can relate to in this podcast somewhere, somehow, some way. So let us know how visions like these have impacted you in your own lives. Special thanks to Sierra for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So please comment, like, subscribe, check out linktr.ee/clairjoyance for my links. And then where can folks find out more about you?
Yep. Instagram and Facebook, Red Thread Books and Red Thread Publishing.
Awesome. And I'll make sure those links are available for everyone as well.
Beautiful.
So until next time, please remember that you all have extraordinary stories inside of you, and I'm rooting for you as you use them to change the world for the better. Take care, guys.